For our fireside chat, we're going to go more in depth of Jenny Torres Sanchez. Artifact 1 is from We Are Not From Here from her number one best-selling novel. It is written by Jenny Torres Sanchez and it's a poignant novel, a desperation, escape, and a survival across the US-Mexican border inspired by current events today. Think to yourself, would you cross the border for better life? Would you sacrifice everything that you have? Please explain. Quote 1 from Jenny Torres Sanchez was from an interview in HuffPost. It says, "Culture and race and ethnicity is not something you slip on and off. It is who we are, and all of us deserve to celebrate and acknowledge and love who we are all the time without limitations." Here is a read along from Jenny's book, We Are Not From Here.
Mi tierra, my land. Pulga. Mama tells me I have an artist's heart. She told me this ever since I can remember, usually out of nowhere. I'll feel her gaze on me, and I'll look over at her, and she'll say, "You have an artist's heart, Pulga." I didn't know what she meant when I was younger, but I didn't care, because she always smiled with this kind of smile that was happy and proud and sad, all at the same time. And it made me feel like this thing, this artist's heart she was talking about, was something big. When she first said this, I pictured myself with a little mustache and beret like Tom and Jerry wear in the cartoons when they whip up a masterpiece in, no kidding, 5 seconds flat, before they're chased by each other, or that bulldog or a broom. 5 seconds. That kind of illusion probably isn't good for little kids. But then again, getting chased is life, right? So maybe those cartoons did teach me something. Anyway, the truth is, that's not the kind of artist I want to be. I want to be the kind of artist my father was, a musician who made cool-ass music and dreamed big dreams. Maybe that's what having an artist's heart means, dreaming. Or maybe it means seeing color in the world, noticing and searching for it everywhere, in everything, because the world can be such a dark place. Or maybe it means you feel things you wish you didn't. Maybe it means that when you see blood on concrete, you can't stop wondering who it belonged to. Maybe it means a part of you wants to cry and run. All I know is an artist's heart is the worst kind of thing to have around here. An artist's heart doesn't help you survive. It makes you soft, breaks you from the inside out, little by little. I don't want to be broken. I don't want to be in pieces. There's too much of that around us already. What I need is a heart of steel, a heart that is cold and hard and numb to the thorny pricks of pain, the slashes of tragedy. Chico flicks something at my face, and I shoot a tiny piece of tortilla back at him, straight into his eye. He rubs at it and laughs. He's sitting across the table from me, wearing his stupid powder blue shirt again, when we hear Mama's cell phone ring. "Man, don't you have any other shirts? That tiny thing barely fits you. You look like a damn belly dancer or something." I laugh, pointing at the visible fleshy rolls around his middle. "Shut the hell up, man. It's my favorite one, okay?" he says. "You see what it says here? American Eagle, okay? I'm an American Eagle, so go fuck yourself," he adds quietly. He looks over at me, waiting to see my reaction. "No, not like that, man. Remember what I told you. You gotta put some force behind your words. Stick out your chin. Lunge forward a little like a dog being held back by a chain." I demonstrate, but Chico shrugs and pulls at his shirt. I've tried to teach Chico how to curse and insult properly, especially since he has the size to pull off the whole threatening thing. But Chico is too timid when he curses. Chico is too timid with everything. He broadcasts his weaknesses to the world without meaning to. Like even now, he pulls at his shirt self-consciously across his round belly, so I know my comment cut right to his insecurities. If I were the kind of guy who wanted to break him, I'd just keep bothering him about it. But I love Chico, so I don't, and I remind myself to lay off him a little. Mi tierra, my land.
Artifact 2 is an interview Jenny Torres Sanchez did with Publishers Weekly over the novel of We Are Not From Here. And it said basically Jenny has a personal connection to the setting of We Are Not From Here because her mother is from Puerto Barras and her siblings still live there, as well as her father being from El Salvador. They both have the cultural background, um, but the setting of We Are Not From Here does take place in Puerto Barras, so and generally it kind of connects to Jenny's mother more. And then also throughout, Jenny was able to make her own personal connections and images in order to make the novel feel as if her readers were actually there. And then I want you to use your own personal experiences to create a short story to present to the class. One of the most significant aspects of the novel We Are Not From Here is the subtle critique of the violence Central American immigrants experience while traveling through Mexico. And about halfway through the novel, the character Pugula says, "Some don't want us here. We are to Mexico what Mexico is to the States," on page 153 of the novel. Jenny references this quote to the systematic violence the characters experience as Central Americans while trying to move through Mexico to find a better life. Artifact 3 comes from one of Jenny's other stories called The Fall of Innocence. It's written by her in 2018, and it's a traffic novel that examines the crippling effects of one's trauma on a person's family, community, and oneself through Amelia's multicultural identity. Amelia is the main character throughout the story. And then I want you to list 2 ways how trauma has affected your family, community, or yourself. A quote from Jenny is, "I think about my younger self and what it would have meant to read a book where the main character was Latina. I was able to identify with characters and their struggles, their dreams, etc. But a book that hit really close to home in culture identity. I didn't find that until college when I was in an ethnic lit class. I'm glad I have the opportunity now as a writer to offer that for young readers, to have characters that young Latinas can say to themselves, 'Wait, I know that. I understand this part of the character.' It means something to know your culture is not something meant to be hidden away. It means that the world sees you and that you're a part of this world and not just the other that society can often delegate you to." That was found in an interview with Hypable. Artifact 4 is an interview that Jenny had over her story, Fall of Innocence, with Hypable as well in 2018. And Jenny stated her inspiration came from scaring her mother to death one day when she did not come home in time. Over the years, Jenny played that conversation with her mother over and over of what could have happened and the questions that followed. Jenny took that conversation years later and turned it into a novel, which is a voice to young girls who have been sexually assaulted to reflect on struggles, self love, and hope. It is impossible to ignore the fact that society values the lives of women of color less than that of white women. The world as a whole is less concerned about women of color, not as outraged for them. That's a truth not many like to hear. It makes people uncomfortable. But I've seen it over and over and over in our society, and I've experienced it as a Latina, and I thought it was important to address in Amelia's story, says Jenny Torres Sanchez in a Hypable interview. Amelia is, in fact, a Latina character, so this quote goes in with the fact of woman of color, woman of less than a white woman. So I thought that was a really cool quote to hit on to connect the interview and the story together. Artifact 5 is over Jenny's story Because of the Sun. It's Jenny's dreamlike language and both beautiful and brutal. This coming of age story effectively explores the complicated nature of love, grief, and dysfunctions of different families. I want you to think of a time you have grieved. List coping strategies that have helped you and reflect on why. Artifact 6 is a Q&A on her story Because of the Sun. And it says in a Q&A with Blog Tour in 2017, Jenny stated that characters within this story are inspired by the woman in my life. The way she has survived her own hardships and helps her others survive theirs. That reminds me of the tough women in my family, and I can see their spirit in that character. I want you to think about who has inspired you, and I want you to write a paragraph and explain why or how or your experience of inspiration. Artifact 7 is over Ginny's other story, Death Dickinson and the Demented Life of Frenchie Garcia. Ginny's expertly crafted narrative moves seamlessly between that night and now, pulling readers into Frenchie's anger and pain without straying into cliches of teen angst. Frenchie's struggle to identity and process of her own emotions rings out as an authentic and honest. There are no easy answers for Frenchie Garcia as she attempts to recover from the tragedy of suicide of her crush in high school. Artifact 8. The Downside of Being Charlie. Ginny claims that the characters throughout this story often turn to art in some way while they're going through a difficult time. Charlie finds he can better sense the world through a camera lens, which in the beginning in Ginny's introduction, she did also mention how she loved the art and pictures and the music and how she can just express herself through them. And overall, this is where she did get the idea of the downside of Charlie. So I want you to brainstorm ways art can help you or anybody express our feelings. Artifact 9 is over the downside of being Charlie also. Ginny once wrote in an article that she portrays Charlie as artsy because she believes arts as something that could potentially save us. She believes art can offer a safe haven of inspiration to where we see and express ourselves through our work. I want you to think, do you believe art can save us? Right, why or why not? And then a quote that Ginny said with an interview with Raquel Henry from the Borough Press is, I write young adult because I think young adults deserve to see themselves in a story. And I think that ties in with everything from the cultural diversity to the art that Ginny portrays in her stories to the self-reflection of getting over a traumatic event. I think that all ties into Ginny wanting to express her characters through a way of which her readers can see themselves in a story. And Artifact 10 is an interview with Ginny. It's an interview with Ginny that breaks down her first 3 books released in 2017. And there is a link for that one because it is a pretty lengthy interview. So I want you to click on the link and read the interview. And then I want you to explain and list new information you've learned from this interview.